Welcome to Kind Sleep Wiki, a quiet place where your mind can wander and grow even as you rest. Tonight, we're taking you on a gentle journey through the minds of the greatest philosophers in history. From the familiar voices of Socrates and Plato to hidden thinkers who quietly shaped the world. You'll hear their stories, their most powerful ideas, and why they still matter today. As you drift into sleep, your brain will soak in timeless wisdom. So when you wake, you'll not only feel rested, you'll feel a little wiser too. So, close your eyes, slow your breathing, and let knowledge flow like a soft river. Level 1, Socrates. Picture ancient Athens, a bustling city of marble temples and lively markets, where a barefoot man, with a scruffy beard, wanders the streets, engaging anyone in deep conversation. That man is Socrates, often called the father of Western philosophy. Born around 470 BCE to a stonecutter father and midwife mother, Socrates didn't come from wealth or nobility. But his mind was his greatest asset. He served as a hoplite soldier in the Peloponnesian War, showing bravery in battles like Potidaea, where he saved a young Alcibiades' life. But it was his post-war life that made him legendary. Socrates never wrote anything down. All we know comes from his pupils, like Plato and Xenophon. His method? The Socratic dialectic, a relentless questioning to expose ignorance and uncover truth. He'd approach a pompous politician or artisan and ask innocent questions. What is courage? What is piety? Layer by layer, he'd reveal contradictions in their beliefs, humbly admitting his own ignorance with the famous line, "I know that I know nothing." This gadfly approach irritated Athens' elite, who accused him of corrupting the youth and impiety. In 399 BCE, at age 70, he stood trial in front of 501 jurors. Instead of begging for mercy, Socrates defended his life of inquiry, arguing that the unexamined life is not worth living. Sentenced to death by hemlock poison, he drank it, calmly, surrounded by friends, philosophizing until his last breath. Why does Socrates matter today? In an era of fake news and echo chambers, his emphasis on critical thinking and ethical living is a beacon. He inspired fields like ethics, logic, and even therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy echoes his questioning. Fun fact, he was married to Xanthippe, known for her sharp tongue. Legend says she dumped a chamber pot on him once. Socrates reminds us that true wisdom comes from humility and curiosity. As you drift off, ponder. What unexamined assumptions shape your life? Sweet dreams, wiser one. Level 2. Plato. Imagine a young man in Athens, deeply impressed by the strange, barefoot philosopher who questioned everything, Socrates. That young man was Plato, who would turn those conversations into the foundation of Western thought. Born into an aristocratic family, Plato could have pursued politics, wealth, or power. Instead, he became obsessed with ideas, justice, beauty, and the nature of reality. When Socrates was executed, Plato was devastated. He left Athens, traveled for years, studying in places like Egypt and Italy, and when he returned, he opened the Academy, the world's first known university. His writings weren't dry treatises. They were dialogues, starring Socrates as the hero. Through these works, Plato explored timeless questions. What is truth? What makes a good life? His most famous concept, theory of forms, the belief that everything we see is just a shadow of a perfect, eternal reality. He illustrated it with the allegory of the cave. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave, watching shadows on a wall, thinking that's reality. The philosopher's job, to break free, see the sunlight of truth, and return to guide others, even if they resist. Plato didn't just dream about justice, he wrote the Republic, envisioning a society ruled by philosopher kings, not greedy politicians. Though his utopia never came true, his influence shaped centuries of political thought. Fun fact, Plato's name wasn't even Plato. It was Aristocles. Plato was a nickname, possibly meaning broad, maybe for his broad shoulders, maybe for his broad style of thinking. Either way, his ideas remain massive in scope. 3. Aristotle. Picture a young man walking into Plato's academy, eager to learn, but later daring to challenge his teacher's ideas. That man was Aristotle, a thinker who shaped science, politics, and logic for centuries. Born in Stagira, he was curious about everything: plants, animals, the stars. While Plato dreamed about ideal worlds, Aristotle was practical. Let's study what's real, what's here. His approach? Observation. He dissected animals, classified species, and basically invented biology as a discipline. He believed everything in nature had a purpose, and his idea of the golden mean, living between extremes, still resonates today. Aristotle also tutored a teenager you might have heard of, Alexander the Great. Imagine having the future conqueror of the world as your student. Under Aristotle, Alexander absorbed lessons on philosophy and power. One of Aristotle's most quoted lines is, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. For him, virtue wasn't about one heroic moment. It was about daily practice, shaping character over time. Why does Aristotle matter? Because his system of logic influenced science for 2 millennia. His ethics guide leadership, his politics shaped constitutions, and his curiosity reminds us, knowledge starts with looking closely at reality. Fun fact, his works survived only because medieval scholars preserved them. Without them, the foundation of Western science might have vanished. Confucius. Picture ancient China, a land of warring states, chaos, and uncertainty. In the midst of this turmoil walked a man preaching harmony, respect, and virtue. That man was Confucius, or Kong Fuzzy, the teacher whose ideas shaped a civilization for over 2 millennia. Confucius wasn't a king, a warrior, or a prophet. He was a teacher, wandering from state to state, hoping rulers would adopt his philosophy. Rule with virtue, not fear. His wisdom was practical. He believed a stable society starts with strong family values and moral leaders. His most famous saying? "It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop." Another gem, respect yourself and others will respect you. These aren't abstract concepts. They're guides for living well every day. Confucius taught that rituals, respect for parents, and education could turn chaos into order. He dreamed of leaders who governed by example, not by cruelty. Sadly, he never saw that dream realized in his lifetime. Fun fact, Confucius didn't write a book. His students collected his sayings into the Analects, a text that still influences business ethics, leadership, and family culture today. Why does Confucius matter? Because in a noisy, self-centered world, his voice reminds us that virtue and respect still matter. Laozi. Now, step into a quiet mountain path in ancient China, where an old sage rides an ox, leaving the world behind. That sage is Laozi, the mysterious author of the Tao Te Ching and the founder of Taoism. Unlike Confucius, who focused on rules and rituals, Laozi believed in something radical, Wu Wei, or effortless action. His message? Stop forcing life, flow with it, like water, soft yet powerful, yielding yet unstoppable. One of his most quoted lines, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Another, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." Laozi believed the universe runs on the Tao, the way, and that harmony comes when we align with it. He saw rigid control as the enemy of balance. Sometimes, doing less achieves more. Fun fact, legend says, Laozi wrote the Tao Te Ching only after a border guard begged him to leave wisdom behind before he vanished into the wilderness. Why does Laozi matter today? Because in an age of hustle culture and burnout, his whisper reminds us, sometimes, the best action is no action at all. René Descartes. Picture a man sitting alone by a fireplace in 17th century Europe, doubting everything, his senses, his beliefs, even his own body. That man was René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Europe was torn by wars and scientific upheaval, and Descartes asked, "What can I know for certain?" His answer became legendary. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. In other words, even if everything is an illusion, the very act of doubting proves there is a thinker. Descartes revolutionized philosophy by making reason the foundation of knowledge. He separated mind from body, a concept that still sparks debates in neuroscience today. Fun fact, he loved sleeping in, often staying in bed until noon. Some say that's when he had his best ideas. Why does Descartes matter? Because every time we question assumptions instead of blindly accepting them, we're echoing his spirit. Immanuel Kant. Imagine a man so punctual that neighbors set their clocks by his daily walks. That was Immanuel Kant, the quiet genius who reshaped ethics and metaphysics. Kant asked a profound question. What can we know? And how should we live? His answer? Knowledge is filtered by our mind's structure, space, time, and categories. Reality as we see it is shaped by us. But his greatest impact? Ethics. Kant believed morality isn't about consequences or feelings. It's about duty and universal principles. His categorical imperative says, act only according to that maxim which you can at the same time will to become a universal law. In plain English, don't do anything unless you'd want everyone to do the same. Fun fact, Kant never traveled far from his hometown of Königsberg, yet his ideas traveled the world. Why does Kant matter? Because every time you think, what if everyone did this? You're living Kantian ethics. Friedrich Nietzsche. Picture a man with a thick mustache, writing fierce words about morality, religion, and power. That was Nietzsche, the philosopher who declared, God is dead. But before you panic, he didn't mean a literal death. He meant the old moral order, based on religion, was collapsing. Nietzsche asked, if there is no divine authority, how should we live? His answer? Create your own values. Don't be a follower. Become the Übermensch. the one who rises above herd mentality. One of his most famous lines, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." It's about finding purpose, even in suffering. Fun fact: Nietzsche loved long walks in the Alps and composed music, but died nearly blind and insane. His ideas, however, live on. In existentialism, psychology, even pop culture. Why does Nietzsche matter? Because in an age of collapsing certainties, his call to self-creation feels more urgent than ever. Karl Marx. Picture a bearded man in a smoky 19th-century café, scribbling ideas that would shake the world. That was Karl Marx, the revolutionary thinker behind communism. Marx believed history is a story of class struggle. The rich versus the poor, owners versus workers. His famous call to action, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." In the Communist Manifesto, co-written with Friedrich Engels, Marx predicted capitalism would collapse under its own weight. He saw exploitation everywhere and believed only a classless society could bring justice. Fun fact: despite his ideas about wealth, Marx spent much of his life broke, relying on Engels for financial support. Why does Marx matter? Because whether you agree or disagree, his critique of inequality still shapes debates on politics, economics, and social justice. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Imagine a man writing, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." That was Rousseau, the thinker who inspired revolutions. Rousseau believed humans are naturally good, but society corrupts them. His dream? A social contract where people govern themselves freely, not under tyrants. He influenced democracy, education, and even romantic ideas of nature. He believed children learn best through experience, not strict rules. A radical thought in his time. Fun fact: Rousseau abandoned his own children to orphanages, a bitter irony for someone who wrote about education. Why does Rousseau matter? Because his vision of freedom and equality still fuels political movements today. Voltaire. Picture 18th-century France, a world of absolute monarchs and rigid dogmas. In this world, one man dared to laugh at kings and priests alike. His weapon? Not swords, but words. That man was Voltaire, the sharpest wit of the Enlightenment. Voltaire was a rebel with a pen, a master of satire who mocked tyranny and fanaticism. He believed in freedom of speech and religious tolerance at a time when such ideas could land you in prison, or worse. And in fact, they did. Voltaire spent time in the Bastille for his biting criticism of authority. One of his most quoted lines is, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Though paraphrased, it captures his spirit. Free speech matters even when we disagree. But Voltaire wasn't just about liberty. He was about reason. In a world of superstition, he demanded evidence. He was ruthless toward hypocrisy, whether in the church or the palace. Fun fact: Voltaire wrote over 20,000 letters and hundreds of books. The man practically lived at his desk, fighting ignorance one sentence at a time. Why does Voltaire matter today? Because in an era of online outrage and echo chambers, his courage reminds us. Defend free speech, even for those you dislike. Thomas Hobbes. Now travel back to 17th century England. Civil war, chaos, kings executed. Out of this storm came Thomas Hobbes, a man obsessed with one question. What happens when there is no government? His answer was chilling. Hobbes believed that without a strong authority, life would descend into anarchy. He wrote in Leviathan, "Life in the state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short." His solution? A powerful sovereign, a Leviathan to keep us in check. Unlike later optimists, Hobbes saw humans as driven by fear and self-interest. Left alone, we fight. So, he argued, we give up some freedoms for security. A social contract that makes civilization possible. Fun fact: Hobbes was terrified of conflict. He was born prematurely during a war and once said, "Fear and I were born twins." Why does Hobbes matter? Because every debate about security versus freedom, surveillance, government control, echoes Hobbes' dilemma. How much liberty will you trade for safety? John Locke. Picture 17th century England. Civil wars behind, revolutions ahead. Amid the turbulence, a man steps forward with a radical idea. Government exists for the people, not the other way around. His name? John Locke, the father of liberal democracy. Locke shattered the notion of divine kingship. In his two treatises of government, he declared that all men are born with natural rights. Life, liberty, and property. These weren't favors from a king. They were inherent, inviolable. His most famous line? "Where there is no law, there is no freedom." Freedom wasn't chaos. It required rules agreed upon by society. Locke believed that governments derive power from consent. If rulers betray the people, revolution is justified. Yes, you heard that right. This calm philosopher essentially laid the intellectual groundwork for the American Revolution and modern democracy. Fun fact: Locke also dabbled in medicine and worked as a personal physician. His scientific curiosity fueled his political theories. He wanted empirical evidence for everything, including governance. Why does Locke matter today? Because every time we debate human rights, voting, or state overreach, we echo Locke's vision. That government should be a social contract, not a throne. David Hume. Now step into 18th century Scotland. Taverns buzzing with debate, ideas flowing like whiskey. There sits David Hume, calm yet devastating to dogma. His mission? To challenge certainty itself. Hume asked, "How do we really know what we know?" He argued that most of our knowledge is just habit. Patterns we expect because they've happened before. The sun rose yesterday, so we assume it will rise tomorrow. But is that logic or faith? Hume called this the problem of induction. One of his sharpest lines. Reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions. Rationality, he said, doesn't drive us. Our desires do. We dress our emotions in logic, pretending we're purely rational. Fun fact: Hume was so controversial that universities refused him jobs. Imagine being too radical for the Enlightenment. Why does Hume matter? Because he planted the seeds of skepticism that later shook science and philosophy. Every time you hear, correlation isn't causation, you're hearing Hume's ghost whispering. Søren Kierkegaard. Imagine 19th century Copenhagen, a quiet city of cobblestone streets, where a solitary figure walks under gray skies, wrestling with questions that feel like weights on the soul. That man is Søren Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism. His obsession? What it means to truly exist. Kierkegaard didn't care about abstract systems. He cared about you, the individual standing before God, trembling with the responsibility of freedom. He asked, "Do you live authentically, or do you hide in the crowd?" His famous concept, the leap of faith, wasn't blind belief. It was courage to embrace uncertainty in a world without guarantees. One of his most haunting lines, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. To be free is terrifying because every choice shapes your soul." Kierkegaard knew this struggle firsthand. He broke off his engagement to Regine Olsen, the woman he loved, because he believed his life's mission demanded solitude. That decision haunted him forever. Why does Kierkegaard matter today? In an age of algorithms and social media mobs, he reminds us, authenticity means choosing for yourself, even when it feels like standing on the edge of an abyss. Michel Foucault. Now shift to 20th century France. Paris cafes alive with radical thought. Michel Foucault enters the scene, sharp-eyed, with a question that would shake the world: what if power isn't just in kings and laws, but in everyday life? Foucault argued that power hides in the systems we take for granted. Schools, hospitals, prisons. These aren't neutral. They shape us, controlling behavior without chains or whips. His studies of prisons in Discipline and Punish revealed a chilling truth. Modern society turned from punishing the body to disciplining the soul. One of his famous lines, "Where there is power, there is resistance." Power isn't a thing someone owns. It's a network, flowing through knowledge, language, norms. Even science, he said, isn't innocent. It can be an instrument of control. Fun fact: Foucault once staged protests for prison reform, literally chaining himself in solidarity with inmates. Why does Foucault matter now? Because every debate on surveillance, censorship, or cancel culture echoes his insight. Control isn't always visible. It hides in what we call normal. Albert Camus. Algiers, 1940s. A young journalist watches war tear Europe apart and asks a dangerous question. Is life meaningless? His name Albert Camus, the man who gave us the philosophy of the absurd. Camus didn't say life is meaningless. He said it feels that way because we crave order in a chaotic world. His answer wasn't despair but defiance. In The Myth of Sisyphus, he wrote, "Imagine a man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill forever, only for it to roll back down. That's us." But Camus declares, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Why? Because meaning isn't given. It's created through rebellion, through living fully without illusions. Fun fact: Camus loved soccer. He said what he learned from the sport helped him face life. After many years in which the world offered me many reasons for despair, I still love life. Why does Camus matter? In a world facing pandemics and crises, he teaches us resilience. Even when life feels absurd, we can choose dignity and joy. Jean-Paul Sartre. Paris, mid-20th century. Smoky cafes filled with poets and rebels. There sits Jean-Paul Sartre, chain-smoking, eyes blazing. His creed? Existence precedes essence. Translation: you're not born with a fixed purpose. You create it. Sartre rejected destiny, God, excuses. For him, radical freedom was terrifying because it made us responsible for everything we are. His chilling line, "Man is condemned to be free." Condemned because there's no script, no guarantees, only choices. With freedom comes anguish. Every decision is a statement about what humanity should be. That's why Sartre said, in choosing for yourself, you choose for all mankind. Fun fact: he turned down the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1964. Why? He didn't want to be institutionalized. Why does Sartre matter? In a world addicted to labels and algorithms, he reminds us, you're not defined by a role. You define yourself, moment by moment. Epicurus. Travel back to ancient Greece. Not in a palace, but a modest garden where friends gather, eating bread, sipping water, talking joyfully. This is Epicurus, and his philosophy is often misunderstood. People think Epicurean means indulgence, luxury. Wrong. Epicurus taught simplicity. His secret? Happiness isn't about feasts or wealth, it's about peace of mind. He wrote, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Desire less, fear less, and you'll suffer less." He even challenged the fear of death. "Death is nothing to us," he said, "because when we exist, death is not, and when death exists, we are not." Fun fact: Epicurus valued friendship above all pleasures. He believed friends were the greatest safeguard against life's storms. Why does Epicurus matter today? In an age of consumerism, his voice is radical. True pleasure is freedom from fear, from endless wanting. Marcus Aurelius. Picture the Roman emperor in a war tent, writing by lamplight. Outside, chaos. Inside, calm words that would survive 2 millennia. Marcus Aurelius. Philosopher king, the last of the 5 good emperors, and a devoted Stoic. His masterpiece, Meditations, wasn't meant for us. It was his private journal. Yet in those pages, he wrestled with power, mortality, and meaning. His advice? Control what you can, accept what you can't. His timeless line, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Marcus faced plagues, wars, betrayal, yet clung to reason and virtue. He reminded himself daily fame fades, riches vanish, but character endures. Fun fact: despite commanding the world's greatest empire, Marcus slept on a simple bed and wore plain clothes, living as close to nature as possible. Why does Marcus matter? Because in our age of anxiety, his Stoic wisdom whispers, "Focus on what's in your control. Let the rest go." Baruch Spinoza. Imagine a man so committed to thinking freely that he got kicked out of his religious community, cursed as a heretic. That was Baruch Spinoza, a quiet lens grinder in 17th century Amsterdam, building a philosophy that would scandalize Europe. Spinoza said something radical: God is not a person. God is nature itself. His famous phrase, God or nature. To him, everything is connected in one infinite substance. No miracles, no divine interventions. Just a universe running on eternal laws. Why was this dangerous? Because Spinoza removed the idea of a personal God rewarding or punishing us. He said, "Stop fearing hell. Start living with understanding. Real freedom is knowing why things happen and flowing with reality." Fun fact: people were so angry they once tried to kill him. Someone stabbed him, and he wore that torn cloak for life as a badge of honor. Why does Spinoza matter today? In an age of science and spirituality, he bridges both, reminding us, we are not outside nature. We are nature. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Picture a man trying to solve the puzzle of the universe with math and optimism. That's Leibniz, the guy who co-invented calculus and fought with Newton about it. But his philosophy? Pure hope. Leibniz believed this world, with all its mess and pain, is the best of all possible worlds. Why? Because God, being perfect, would choose the best arrangement overall. Even if that means some suffering. His quote, "Reality cannot be found except in one single source, because of the interconnection of all things with one another." Fun fact: Voltaire roasted Leibniz in his satire Candide, turning best of all worlds into a joke about blind optimism. But Leibniz wasn't naive. He believed reason and science would keep improving life. Today, Leibniz matters because he asks, can we see the big picture before declaring everything hopeless? And also, next time you do calculus homework, thank him. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Enter Hegel, the man who made philosophy sound like a boss fight. His writing is dense, but his idea? Everything is a process. Reality unfolds through conflict and resolution. What he called dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. History, for Hegel, isn't random. It's spirit or Geist becoming free. Every struggle, wars, revolutions is part of humanity's self-discovery. His famous line, "The real is rational, and the rational is real," which means, reality has an underlying logic, even if we can't always see it. Fun fact: Hegel was so hard to read that even his students joked about it. One said, "First we understand nothing, then we misunderstand, then maybe we understand." Why does Hegel matter? Because every time you hear progress, history has a direction, or things happen for a reason. That's Hegel whispering in the background. Francis Bacon. Picture a chilly English morning in the early 1600s. A man in a heavy robe, quill in hand, scribbles furiously. Knowledge is power. That man is Francis Bacon, the father of the scientific method. Before Bacon, knowledge was mostly about reading old books and quoting Aristotle. Bacon said, "Enough of that. Let's observe, experiment, and test." His big idea? Instead of starting with grand theories, start with facts and build upward. That's induction, the foundation of modern science. He wrote Novum Organum, basically a manifesto saying, "Stop guessing, start proving." His famous quote, "Knowledge is power," simple, but revolutionary. In an age ruled by kings and priests, Bacon said power comes from understanding nature. That idea shaped the modern world. Think technology, medicine, everything. Fun fact: Bacon died in a very Bacon way. Doing an experiment. He tried stuffing a chicken with snow to see if it would preserve the meat. He caught pneumonia and died. Why does Bacon matter today? Because every time you Google something, trust a medical study, or demand evidence. That's Bacon's voice in your head. Blaise Pascal. Imagine a teenage genius inventing the first calculator in the 1600s, then turning to philosophy and religion. That's Blaise Pascal. He was a mathematician, physicist, inventor, and a man obsessed with the human heart. Pascal believed reason alone couldn't fill the void inside us. His famous thought? The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of. He saw humans as paradoxical, capable of greatness yet miserably fragile. And then there's Pascal's wager. His clever argument for belief in God. If God exists and you believe, infinite gain. If he doesn't and you believe, small loss. But if he exists and you don't believe, infinite loss. Basically better safe than sorry. Fun fact: after a mystical vision, Pascal carried a piece of parchment sewn into his coat, describing that experience, until his death. Why does Pascal matter today? In a world obsessed with logic and data, he reminds us. Emotion and faith still shape our lives. Sometimes, the heart wins. John Stuart Mill. Picture Victorian England, where conformity was the rule. John Stuart Mill stands up and says, "Liberty matters." His book on liberty is basically a love letter to individual freedom. Mill's idea? Society should only limit someone's freedom to prevent harm to others. What we now call the harm principle. His famous line, "Genuine justice is to let people do as they wish, provided they do no harm." Why was this radical? Because back then, being different could ruin you. Mill fought for free speech, women's rights, and education. He believed diversity wasn't a problem. It was progress. Fun fact: Mill read Greek at age 3. But he also had a mental breakdown at 20 because of his strict upbringing. Poetry saved him. He realized feelings matter as much as logic. Why does Mill matter now? In cancel culture debates, free speech wars, and identity politics. Mill's voice is loud. Let people live, as long as no one's harmed. Jeremy Bentham. Imagine a man measuring morality like math. That's Jeremy Bentham, the father of utilitarianism. His big question: what brings the greatest happiness to the greatest number? If it does, it's good. If not, it's bad. Bentham wanted laws and governments to stop obsessing over tradition and start maximizing well-being. His famous quote, "Nature has placed mankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure." Fun fact: Bentham's body is still on display at University College London. Dressed in his old clothes, sitting in a glass case. Students call him Auto Icon. Why does Bentham matter now? Every time you hear cost-benefit analysis, or debates about vaccines, welfare, or AI ethics, you're in Bentham's world. Augustine of Hippo. Picture a rebellious young man, chasing pleasure, then becoming one of Christianity's greatest thinkers. That's Augustine. Before he was a saint, he was wild. He even prayed, "Lord, make me pure but not yet." His masterpiece, Confessions, is like the first spiritual autobiography. He wrestled with big questions. Why do we sin? Do we have free will? His answer: evil isn't a thing. It's the absence of good. Famous line: "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you." Fun fact: Augustine stole pears as a teen. Not because he was hungry, but for the thrill of doing wrong. That moment haunted him and shaped his thoughts on sin. Why does Augustine matter? Because he laid the foundations of Western Christian thought. Grace, will, and inner conflict. And because, deep down, we all know what it's like to want something. Just because we shouldn't. Thomas Aquinas. Picture a medieval scholar in a Dominican robe, sitting in a dimly lit monastery. Candles flicker as he writes page after page, trying to answer one massive question. Can faith and reason work together? That's Thomas Aquinas, the man who bridged Aristotle and Christianity. Back then, faith ruled everything. Questioning it could get you burned at the stake. But Aquinas dared to say, hey, logic is not the enemy of God. His big idea? Natural law. He believed the universe is structured with reason. And God designed it that way. So when we use logic, we're not rebelling against God. We're getting closer to Him. Famous quote. To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible. Fun fact. Aquinas was nicknamed the dumb ox because he was huge and quiet. But his teacher said, "This ox's bellow will fill the world." Spoiler. It did. His Summa Theologica shaped theology for centuries. Why does Aquinas matter today? In a world split between science and religion, his work says maybe it's not either. Maybe truth is big enough for both. Zeno of Citium. Imagine a shipwrecked merchant crawling onto the shores of Athens with nothing. That's Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism. Broke and lost, he walked into a bookstore, read about Socrates, and said, "That's it. I'll become a philosopher." His core idea? Control what you can, accept what you can't. Simple but powerful. Zeno believed happiness comes not from chasing wealth or fame, but from living in harmony with nature and virtue. Quote, "Man conquers the world by conquering himself." Fun fact. Zeno taught philosophy on a painted porch in Athens. Stoa poikal. That's why it's called Stoicism. Why does this matter now? Because anxiety and stress dominate our world. Stoicism says, you can't control the stock market or other people's opinions, but you can control your mind. That's freedom. Epictetus. Picture this, ancient Rome filled with crowded streets and marble columns, soldiers marching in the distance, merchants shouting prices, and among them a man who was born into slavery, weak in body, chained by circumstances, yet destined to shape the way humans think about freedom forever. His name was Epictetus. He had no choice in where he was born, no control over his broken body, and no real possessions to call his own, yet within these limits, he discovered something so powerful that even the mightiest emperors could never touch it. He discovered that true freedom is an inside job. Epictetus once said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus can fetter my will." Imagine that level of strength, when the world can shackle your body, yet your mind walks free. That is the heart of his philosophy. He taught that the events in our lives do not truly harm us. What harms us is our judgment about them. The meaning we attach. Think about dropping your phone, the glass shatters across the floor. Is that a tragedy? Epictetus would shake his head and say no. The event is nothing but a fact. What hurts is the thought that follows. My life is ruined. I cannot function, and that is where suffering is born. His famous line has echoed across centuries, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Let that settle in for a moment, because it is not the storm outside that destroys us, it is the storm inside. Now here is something curious. Epictetus himself never wrote a single word. His wisdom lived in conversations and in life itself. It was his student Arian who captured his thoughts in the discourses. Without him, these ideas might have vanished into the dust of history, and yet today, 2,000 years later, Navy SEALs read Epictetus, CEOs quote him, therapists teach his words because the world still throws its punches, jobs are lost. Relationships break, health fails, and when it happens, the whisper of Epictetus is still there. Control your response, not the universe. So next time life tilts against you, pause and ask, can I control this? If yes, act. If no, let it go, that is the Stoic art of living, and Epictetus, the man who began as a slave, became its unshakable voice. Seneca. Picture the glittering marble of imperial Rome, corridors alive with whispers of power. And within those halls stands a man whose voice calls for calm and clarity. That man is Seneca. Stoic philosopher, dramatist, and reluctant advisor to one of history's most volatile rulers, Nero. His life was a paradox from the beginning, for though he spoke of simplicity and virtue, he lived amid wealth and politics, not in quiet solitude but in a storm of influence. And yet, maybe that is why his words still matter, because he did not speak from a distant mountain, he spoke from inside the chaos. Wrestling with temptations most of us will never know. Seneca's central insight is simple but sharp. Life is not too short, we simply waste most of it, he wrote. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we squander much of it. Think about that. Hours scattered on distractions and empty noise, while the clock moves silently forward. He saw time as our most precious currency, more valuable than gold because it cannot be replaced, and yet most people guard their money with iron walls while letting time slip through their fingers without a thought. But Seneca was no pure saint. Critics mocked him as a hypocrite, preaching poverty while owning estates, lending at interest, and accumulating riches. He did not deny it, and perhaps that honesty is why we trust him, because his philosophy was not perfection, it was a struggle. A daily effort to live wisely in an imperfect world. His death became his ultimate act of stoicism. When Nero ordered him to die, Seneca met the command without panic. Opening his veins calmly, speaking with friends as life drained away. A man practicing what he taught, even at the end. Today, in an age of endless screens and constant demands, Seneca's voice cuts through like a whisper from 2,000 years ago, asking us, how much time have you wasted, and what will you do with what remains, because the clock is still ticking, and this day will never return. Diogenes. Picture the bright streets of ancient Athens, filled with marble statues and citizens chasing wealth and reputation. Now, imagine a ragged man walking barefoot under the blazing sun, carrying nothing but a lantern even at noon. Saying he is searching for an honest man. That man is Diogenes, the father of cynicism and the original rule-breaker of philosophy. A thinker who rejected almost everything society valued. Diogenes believed that happiness comes from living in harmony with nature, not from status or possessions. He mocked luxury and comfort, calling them chains disguised as blessings. To him the path to freedom was to need less, not more, and his life was the ultimate demonstration of this belief. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, stood before him and asked what favor he could grant, Diogenes did not kneel or flatter. He simply said, "Stand out of my sunlight." A single sentence that humiliated an emperor and still echoes through history as a declaration of independence from power. His quote says it all: "He has the most who is content with the least," a truth as sharp today as it was 2,000 years ago. Because in an age of status games and curated online lives, his message feels almost revolutionary. Why keep piling up when the weight only slows you down? Fun fact: Diogenes lived in a large clay jar, ate scraps, and performed acts in public that shocked polite society. All to prove that social rules were arbitrary and that shame was a prison of the mind. his entire existence was a protest against pretense. Today, when influencers flaunt lifestyles and consumerism promises happiness, Diogenes whispers across time, reminding us that freedom begins when you stop performing, that a life stripped of false needs is not a loss, but a liberation, and maybe, just maybe, the sunlight is all we ever needed. Arthur Schopenhauer. Picture a dimly lit room with heavy curtains drawn and a man staring into the void as if the universe itself were a cruel joke. That man is Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who dared to declare life as suffering long before pessimism was a trend. He believed that behind everything lies the blind and restless will to live, a force that drives us endlessly, yet never satisfies us, and because of this we swing like a pendulum between pain and boredom. For Schopenhauer, happiness was never a permanent state, it was a fleeting illusion. We chase desire after desire, and the moment one is fulfilled another rises. It is an endless treadmill, and in this constant craving, suffering becomes inevitable. To him the wisest path was not in chasing pleasure, but in reducing desires, a lesson as relevant now as ever. He once wrote, "Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom." And that single image captures the rhythm of modern existence. One moment we are restless for more, the next we are numbed by too much. And this cycle spins endlessly unless we step away from the will. Fun fact: Schopenhauer adored dogs more than people. He called his beloved poodle the little man, and even left part of his inheritance to care for his pets. Some say he trusted animals more because they were free from the deceptive masks of human society, unlike the endless performance of men. In a time where social media feeds our hunger for more likes, more things, more validation, Schopenhauer's grim insight feels almost prophetic. Maybe the true escape is not in another upgrade or another trip, but in silencing the will, finding peace not by adding but by subtracting, not by more but by less. And though his philosophy sounds dark, there is a strange comfort in realizing that the problem is not the world but our endless wanting, a truth that can set us free. Ludwig Wittgenstein. Imagine a man who could not stop thinking about words as if language itself held the secret of existence. That man was Ludwig Wittgenstein. Born into immense wealth yet walking away from luxury to wrestle with philosophy, his life was a paradox of brilliance and torment. He wrote a single book that shook the world, then abandoned academia to teach in remote villages, only to return and rewrite everything he believed. His obsession was simple yet profound. Most philosophical problems, he argued, are not problems at all but knots in our language, misunderstandings hiding inside words. He once declared, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world," which means reality itself is framed by the words we use. Imagine living in a house where language is the walls. Expand those walls and your world expands too. Shrink them and your life grows smaller without you even noticing. A striking fact about Wittgenstein is that he gave away his fortune to live modestly. He worked as a gardener, even as an assistant in hospitals during war. His lectures were intense like therapy sessions. Sometimes he would fall silent for long minutes. As if language had betrayed him, students sat frozen, waiting for words to return. His influence reaches far beyond philosophy. In an age of tweets, sound bites, and artificial intelligence generating text, his warning rings louder. Words are not just tools, they shape reality. Use them carelessly and you build confusion. Use them wisely and you build clarity. The next time a debate explodes online, remember Wittgenstein whispering, maybe the problem is not the idea, but the words we pick to express it, and in that thought there is a strange kind of freedom. Bertrand Russell. Picture an aristocrat in a fine suit standing in a prison cell because he refused to stay silent about war. That was Bertrand Russell. A man who balanced the precision of logic with the fire of activism. He wrote on mathematics, love, education, and the meaning of life, and in every line he believed reason should guide us rather than superstition or blind authority. Russell once wrote, "The good life is one inspired by love and guided by knowledge." And this sentence holds the essence of his mission. Love without knowledge becomes chaos, knowledge without love becomes cold. But together they create a life worth living, a message that sounds simple yet remains radical in an age of division. His life was anything but quiet. He was jailed for opposing World War I. Later he became one of the loudest voices against nuclear weapons. Imagine him at nearly 90 years old being arrested for protesting bombs. His commitment burned until the very end, and that stubborn courage gave his words the weight of action. Today, when falsehood spreads faster than truth, when fear often drowns compassion, Russell's voice calls across time, think critically. Do not worship opinions, let curiosity guide you more than certainty, and let empathy temper your conclusions, for in a noisy world, the rarest act is still the simplest, to seek truth and to live by it. And that makes Russell not just a philosopher but a guide for every age. Edmund Husserl. Imagine a quiet cafe in Freiburg, soft clinking of cups. A bearded man scribbling furiously, lost in a quest to peel back the layers of human consciousness. That's Edmund Husserl, the father of phenomenology, who wanted us to see the world afresh, like a child opening their eyes for the first time. He didn't chase grand theories, instead he asked, what if we bracket everything we assume about reality? Suspend judgment, and just describe what we experience, raw and unfiltered. This was his big move, the phenomenological reduction. A way to strip away biases, habits, cultural noise, to get to the essence of things, like tasting coffee without the story of where it's from. Husserl's life was all focus. He'd lecture for hours, pacing, chain smoking, his students hanging on every word, but here's the quirky bit. He'd collect everyday objects, a spoon, a chair, to study how we perceive them, turning mundane into profound. He believed consciousness is always of something, intentional, like a spotlight always pointing somewhere, shaping our world. Fun twist, his method inspired everyone from existentialists to sci-fi writers, think Matrix, questioning what's real. Today, his ideas ripple through mindfulness apps, therapy sessions, even AI design, urging us to notice how we notice, to live in the moment's texture. Husserl whispers, don't just think, experience, what's in front of you right now, a pillow, a breath. A fleeting thought? Let that pure awareness cradle you into sleep, unclouded, open, free. Martin Heidegger. Picture a rustic black forest cabin, pine-scented air, a thinker in peasant boots pondering existence itself. That's Martin Heidegger. Who didn't just ask what things are, but why there's anything at all, why not just nothing? His big idea, being, isn't stuff or objects, it's the mystery of existence. And we, as Dasein, thrown into this world, are the ones who wrestle with it, feeling anxiety like a cosmic wake-up call. Heidegger's life was intense. He'd hike mountains for clarity, scribble in solitude, but here's the quirky shade: he joined the Nazis briefly. A stain he never fully shook, yet his philosophy soared beyond, asking us to live authentically, not lost in the chatter of the they. Fun story: he'd lecture in a trance, students mesmerized, some swearing he glowed, like he was channeling being itself. Today, his thoughts haunt tech debates, when algorithms make us inauthentic, or environmentalism, urging us to dwell poetically on earth. Heidegger murmurs, face the void, what's your being calling you to? As sleep pulls you in. Let that question hum, soft as forest whispers, guiding you to dream's edge. Gilles Deleuze. Imagine a Parisian rebel with a wild mane, chain smoking in a cluttered apartment. Weaving ideas so vibrant they dance like colors in a kaleidoscope, that's Gilles Deleuze. Who saw life as a constant flow of differences, no fixed truths, just endless becoming. He tossed out rigid categories, saying reality's a chaotic web of connections, think rhizomes like grassroots sprawling everywhere, not a single trunk. With pal Felix Guattari, he wrote Anti-Oedipus, a punk rock take on Freud, arguing society's control freak rules mess with our desires, turning us into cogs. Quirky habit: he'd lecture on everything from cinema to Spinoza. His voice raspy, students spellbound by his weird metaphors, like life as a body without organs. Fun tale: he'd compare philosophy to detective work, sniffing out how power sneaks into language. Today, his ideas spark internet culture, memes exploding in rhizomatic chaos, or artists embracing flux over order. Deleuze whispers, don't pin life down, let it flow, what differences are you becoming? As you drift, let his kaleidoscope swirl you into colorful dreams. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Picture a soft-spoken Frenchman in a dimly lit study, pondering how your body, not just your mind, knows the world. That's Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Who said we're woven into reality through our senses, like a painter feels the canvas? His big idea, perception isn't just brain work, it's your hands touching, eyes roaming, body moving through space, all before thought kicks in. He loved art, especially Cézanne, saying painters capture the world's raw flesh, the texture we all share, human, tree, sky. Quirky habit: he'd sketch while lecturing, doodling to think, his students charmed by his gentle intensity. Fun connection: he hung out with Sartre and Beauvoir, but preferred quiet cafes over their noisy debates, musing on embodiment over wine. Today, his ideas shape VR design, dance therapy, even mindfulness, reminding us we're not brains in jars but bodies in the world. Merleau-Ponty whispers, feel the world's pulse, what's your body telling you now? As sleep wraps you, let your senses weave dreams, tactile, alive, connected. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Picture a soft-spoken Frenchman in a dimly lit study, pondering how your body, not just your mind, knows the world. That's Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Who said we're woven into reality through our senses, like a painter feels the canvas? His big idea, perception isn't just brain work, it's your hands touching, eyes roaming, body moving through space, all before thought kicks in. He loved art, especially Cézanne, saying painters capture the world's raw flesh, the texture we all share, human, tree, sky. Quirky habit, he'd sketch while lecturing, doodling to think, his students charmed by his gentle intensity. Fun connection, he hung out with Sartre and Beauvoir, but preferred quiet cafes over their noisy debates, musing on embodiment over wine. Today, his ideas shape VR design, dance therapy, even mindfulness, reminding us we're not brains in jars but bodies in the world. Merleau-Ponty whispers, "Feel the world's pulse, what's your body telling you now?" As sleep wraps you, let your senses weave dreams, tactile, alive, connected. Alain Badiou. Picture a fiery Frenchman striding through a packed lecture hall. His voice booming like a poet preaching revolution, eyes sparkling with ideas that feel like rare comets flashing across a dull sky. That's Alain Badiou. A philosopher who believes truth doesn't just sit quietly, it explodes into the world, shaking everything up. Think of falling in love. Joining a protest, creating art, or solving a math puzzle. These are what he calls events, moments that break the boring rules of everyday life. His big idea is simple but wild. We live in situations, like systems of power or routines that keep things predictable. But when an event hits, like a sudden spark of inspiration, you have to stay loyal to it, let it change how you see the world. It's like choosing to follow a new path after a life-changing moment. Badiou loves math, weaving crazy ideas like set theory into his philosophy. Saying infinity isn't just numbers, it's the endless possibilities of change. Imagine a universe where every choice opens a new door. Quirky habit, he writes plays and novels, mixing radical politics with poetic vibes, like a rebel storyteller shouting for justice. Fun twist, he's a fan of Mao's ideas, not the failures, but the spirit of shaking things up. Which gets him into heated debates with critics who think he's too extreme. His book Being an Event is like a brain-bending puzzle, asking you to rethink what you're truly committed to. What's the big event in your life? Today, his ideas light up activists fighting for change, artists creating bold new works. Even tech innovators chasing the next big thing. Badiou's challenge is clear: find your truth, stick to it. What event in your life is calling you to be brave? Keep that spark alive, let it guide your choices. Richard Rorty. Imagine a chill American professor lounging in a cozy office, coffee in hand. Chuckling at the idea that philosophers can find one big truth with a capital T. That's Richard Rorty. A pragmatist who thinks truth isn't some treasure buried out there. It's whatever helps us get along, make life better, like picking the right tool for a job. He says we're shaped by stories, language, culture, like we're all co-writing a giant novel together. No need for a cosmic rulebook telling us what's right or wrong. His big idea, irony, is about holding your beliefs lightly, knowing they're useful for now, but not eternal, like choosing a song for the moment, not forever. Rorty loved jazz, poetry, and long chats with students, his glasses slipping down his nose, always pushing them to question big, stuffy ideas. Quirky habit, he called himself a postmodern bourgeois liberal. Poking fun at his comfy life while preaching openness, like a hipster with a philosophy degree. Fun moment, he teased philosophers chasing truth like it's a shiny trophy, when really, it's about having good conversations, sharing ideas that work. His thoughts live on in today's world. Think of social media debates where we remix stories, or therapy, where you rewrite your personal narrative to feel freer. Rorty's nudge is gentle. Don't get stuck on absolutes. What story helps you live well right now? Keep the conversation open, playful, human. Jürgen Habermas. Picture a calm German professor standing in a buzzing lecture hall, surrounded by eager students, patiently explaining how talking, really talking, could save the world. That's Jürgen Habermas, who believes good communication is the key to a fair society, like a perfect group chat where everyone gets a say. His big idea, the ideal speech situation, is like a dream debate. Everyone speaks freely, listens carefully, no one bullies or drowns out the other. Truth wins through clear reasoning, not who shouts loudest. He'd sip tea, scribble dense books, always ready to dive into debates with critics, staying polite, never throwing shade. Quirky habit, he loved strolling Frankfurt's busy streets, thinking about public spheres, places like cafes or newspapers, where people swap ideas and shape society. Fun fact, growing up after World War II, he saw how lies and propaganda tore things apart, so he pushed for open, honest talk to rebuild trust, heal wounds. Today, his ideas inspire online forums aiming for fair debates, or activists fighting for inclusive voices. Habermas asks softly, how can you add to the conversation, make it fairer, more human? Speak clearly, listen deeply, keep the dialogue alive. Simone de Beauvoir. Imagine a fierce woman sitting in a smoky Paris café, her pen racing across the page, tearing apart the idea that women are just men's sidekicks. That's Simone de Beauvoir, a feminist powerhouse who said, "One is not born a woman, you become one," meaning society, not biology, writes the script for what woman means. Her book The Second Sex is like a detective story, uncovering how women are pushed into being the other. Always second to men, like supporting actors in someone else's movie, she demanded equal minds, equal lives, no more stereotypes. She lived as boldly as she wrote, in an open romance with Jean-Paul Sartre, sharing secrets, having affairs with men and women, turning love's chaos into deep philosophical ideas. Quirky habit, she'd collect odd souvenirs from her travels, shells, stones, little treasures she'd weave into stories. Fun scandal, her books got banned by the Vatican, which only made her more of a rebel legend. Today, her ideas fuel movements like #MeToo, or classes on gender. Pushing us to question normal roles, Beauvoir's voice is clear: define yourself on your own terms. Who are you becoming right now? Write your own story, make it epic. Hannah Arendt. Picture a sharp-eyed woman fleeing a war-torn world, scribbling in a tiny apartment about what makes us human. That's Hannah Arendt, who believed politics isn't just power grabs, it's people acting together, creating something new, like a community coming alive. Her big idea, the banality of evil, came from watching a Nazi trial. Not a cartoon villain, just a dull bureaucrat following orders. She showed evil can be ordinary, thoughtless, which makes it scarier. It's why we must think for ourselves. She loved lively debates, chain smoking with friends, her home a hub for big ideas. Quirky habit, she'd pace, muttering in German and English, piecing together thoughts like a puzzle. Fun spark, she had a complicated romance with her teacher, Heidegger, but it fueled her fierce independence, never bowing to anyone's ideas. Today, her thoughts shine in protests, apps for civic action, anywhere we rethink what responsibility means. Arendt asks quietly, "What's your part in the world's story? How can you act with thought?" Stay awake to your choices. Herbert Marcuse. Imagine a radical thinker in sunny California, surrounded by students chanting for freedom, railing against a world obsessed with stuff. That's Herbert Marcuse. A Frankfurt School rebel who said capitalism tricks us into one-dimensional lives, chasing shiny gadgets instead of real freedom. His big idea is liberation, break free from society's rules by tapping into art, imagination, even love's wild energy. It's about dreaming bigger than just buying more things. He'd vibe with hippies, lecture with fiery passion, quirky habit, loved jazz, hearing rebellion in every note, like music could shake the system. Fun moment, called the father of the New Left, he inspired 60s protests, once saw cops tear gas his crowd, but kept pushing for change. His ideas hit hard today. Think of social media ads pushing endless products, or mindfulness trends fighting back. Marcuse's voice is loud. Imagine a life beyond consumerism. What does your freedom look like? Dare to dream bigger. Max Horkheimer. Picture a serious German exile in New York, surrounded by books, picking apart how society controls us. That's Max Horkheimer. The Frankfurt School leader who warned that reason, which should set us free, often becomes a tool for power, like a trap we don't see. His big idea, critical theory, is like a magnifying glass, showing how culture, media, even science. Keep the powerful in charge. Think of ads that make you crave things you don't need. They're not just ads, they're control. He'd brainstorm with friends over coffee, quirky habit, loved reading detective novels. Seeing them as clues to society's hidden flaws, like a mystery waiting to be solved. Fun fact, he fled the Nazis but kept critiquing from afar. His book Dialectic of Enlightenment argues progress contagious, like technology promising freedom but tracking our every move. Today, his ideas help us question media spin, corporate tricks. Horkheimer's nudge is sharp. Look closer. What systems are shaping your life? Dig beneath the surface. Theodor Adorno. Imagine a moody intellectual in Los Angeles, jazz or classical music blasting, tearing into pop culture's hold on our minds. That's Theodor Adorno. Who said the culture industry turns art into a factory product, making us passive, not free thinkers? His big idea is that movies, radio hits, even catchy ads aren't just fun. They're tools to keep us in line, selling us dreams of happiness while dulling our ability to question, like being lulled by a sugary song. He loved music, played piano, quirky habit, analyzed pop songs like they were crimes, finding control hidden in their beats, like a detective of culture. Fun clash, he argued with jazz fans, saying even their free music followed rules, not as rebellious as they thought. Today, his ideas hit home in our world of streaming playlists. Influencer ads. Adorno's warning is clear: don't just consume, question what's being sold to you. What art makes your mind spark? Find your own beat. Jacques Derrida. Picture a playful Frenchman with a twinkle in his eye, unraveling language like a magician pulling scarves. that's Jacques Derrida. Who said meaning's never fixed, always slipping, like a word you can't quite catch. His big idea, deconstruction, isn't destruction, it's teasing apart texts, ideas, showing their contradictions, like finding cracks in a statue's perfect pose. He'd lecture with puns, charming crowds, quirky habit, loved cats, musing if they respond or just react, turning pets into philosophy. Fun feud, sparred with Searle in a wordy rap battle, proving language is a game. Today, his ideas spark memes twisting ads, or debates unpacking truth. Derrida whispers, play with meaning, what's hiding in your words? Let language dance. Emmanuel Levinas. Imagine a quiet, kind-eyed man from Lithuania, sitting in a small room, thinking about the faces of strangers. That's Emmanuel Levinas. Who believed ethics begins when you look into someone's eyes, their vulnerability calling you to care, not because of rules, but because they're human. His big idea flips philosophy upside down. It's not about big questions like what is being, it's about the other, the person in front of you. Their needs pulling you to act, like a stranger's gaze stopping you in your tracks. He lived through war's horrors, a prisoner in a camp, scribbling ideas on scraps, quirky habit. He'd see faces everywhere, in paintings, crowds, each one sparking a moral question. Fun fact, he turned philosophy toward compassion, saying the face of another is a command, don't ignore it. Today, his ideas shape how we think about helping refugees, caring for others. Levinas asks gently, who's in front of you, what do they need from you? Answer with kindness. Paul Ricoeur. Picture a gentle scholar in a cozy, book-filled library. Surrounded by stacks of novels, myths, scribbling ideas about how we make sense of ourselves. That's Paul Ricoeur. A thinker who saw life as a big, colorful story, like a novel you're always writing, rewriting, adding new chapters with every choice you make. His big idea is that we understand who we are through narratives, not just facts or logic. But the symbols, dreams, stories we tell, like how a favorite book shapes your view of the world, every memory. Every hope weaves your identity, always open to a new twist. He'd sip wine slowly, chatting about theology, literature, even psychology, quirky habit. He loved detective stories. Seeing them as puzzles for uncovering hidden truths, like digging for clues about the human soul. Fun fact, he tied together ideas from Freud's dreams to ancient Bible tales, showing how stories, whether personal or epic, help us find meaning, make sense of life's chaos. His work feels like a warm conversation, inviting you to think about your own plot, what makes you you. Today, his ideas power therapy sessions where people reshape their life stories to heal, or marketing, where brands craft narratives to connect, even writers spinning tales online. Ricoeur's nudge is kind. What's the story you're telling about yourself? How can you shape it to reflect your truth? Keep weaving your narrative, add a bold new chapter, make it yours. Hans-Georg Gadamer. Imagine an old German professor in a warm seminar room, surrounded by curious students, flipping through dusty old books. Finding fresh ideas. That's Hans-Georg Gadamer, who believed understanding is like a friendly chat with the past, a dance where your world meets the world of a text, creating something new. His big idea, hermeneutics, is about blending horizons, like sitting down with an ancient poet, hearing their story, letting it mix with your own. It's not about finding one true meaning, but growing through the conversation, like two friends swapping tales over coffee. He'd sip his drink, read poetry aloud with passion, quirky habit, collected rare books, treating them like old pals with stories to share, not just objects. Fun moment, he had lively debates with Habermas, arguing that tradition isn't a heavy chain, but a living voice, helping us learn, grow, see the world anew. Today, his ideas shape how we read novels, talk across cultures. Even understand memes that remix old ideas. Gadamer's nudge is gentle. Meet the past halfway. What's it teaching you today? How can you blend its wisdom with your own? Keep the dialogue open, let it spark new thoughts. Michel de Montaigne. Picture a curious French nobleman tucked away in a quiet tower, surrounded by books. A quill in hand, writing as if he's chatting with you late at night. That's Michel de Montaigne. The guy who invented the essay, asking himself, "What do I know?" and answering with raw, honest stories about his doubts, his joys, even his weird habits. His big idea is simple but deep. By writing about your own life, your quirks, your fears, you discover who you are, like holding up a mirror to your soul. Seeing every flaw, every spark, and loving it all anyway. He'd sip wine, watch his cats wander the room. Quirky habit, carved Latin quotes into his library's wooden beams, little bursts of wisdom to keep his mind sharp. Fun fact, he lived through crazy times, plagues, wars, but stayed curious. Never acting like he had all the answers, just kept asking questions, sharing his human side. Today, his essays inspire bloggers, vloggers, anyone pouring their heart into personal stories online. Montaigne's voice is warm. Dig into yourself. What's your heart saying right now? What makes you human? Write your truth, share it with the world, don't hold back. Giordano Bruno. Imagine a bold Italian wandering through Europe's grand courts, his eyes lit with passion, preaching about a universe that's infinite, alive, bursting with stars. That's Giordano Bruno. A dreamer who saw the divine in every speck of dust, every twinkling light, not trapped in some church's rules. His big idea was radical. The universe has no center, no edges, just countless worlds. Each one humming with life, like a poem that stretches forever. This shook up every belief of his time, made people rethink their place in the cosmos. He'd charm kings, argue with stubborn priests, quirky habit, used memory tricks. Turning ideas into vivid mental pictures, like building an art gallery in his mind. Fun tragedy, his wild ideas got him in trouble, burned at the stake for heresy. But his cosmic vision lived on, inspiring astronomers like Galileo, even modern scientists like Einstein. Today, his ideas fuel space missions, spiritual searches for connection with the universe. Bruno's voice is bright. Look up at the stars. Where do you belong in this infinite dance? Embrace the vastness, let it spark your wonder. Bartholomew of Bruges. Picture a quiet monk in a flickering candlelit room, hunched over old manuscripts, carefully sharpening the way we think. That's Bartholomew of Bruges. A medieval scholar you've probably never heard of, but who made logic clearer, like a craftsman polishing a tool until it shines. His big idea was about making arguments solid, using syllogisms, those step-by-step ways we reason, to build bridges for thoughts. So ideas don't crumble into confusion. It's like making sure your math checks out before you build a house. He'd teach young monks, scribbling little notes in the margins of books, quirky habit, loved riddles. Using them to train minds, like mental push-ups to make thinking stronger. Fun fact, his work was like a quiet seed, growing into the logic that later thinkers like Occam used to challenge big ideas. His clarity helped build the foundations of modern reasoning. Today, his influence lives in computer coding, debate clubs, anywhere we need thoughts to be tight, precise. Bartholomew's nudge is simple. Make your thinking clear. What's your mind building right now? What ideas are you shaping? Craft them carefully, make them strong. Hypatia. Imagine a brilliant woman standing under the starry skies of ancient Alexandria, teaching math, philosophy to a crowd of wide-eyed students. That's Hypatia. A pagan scholar in a world shifting to new beliefs, who saw truth sparkling in numbers, stars, ideas, like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. Her big idea was blending Plato's deep thoughts with geometry's precision, showing the universe as a beautiful, harmonious system, one you could understand by thinking clearly, like drawing a map of the heavens with your mind. She'd lecture with calm grace, quirky habit, built astrolabes, clever tools to track the stars, like an ancient astronomer's compass. Fun tragedy, her brilliance made enemies, jealous rivals ended her life in a brutal way. But her ideas survived, lighting up the minds of Renaissance scholars centuries later. Today, her spirit inspires women in science, math, anyone chasing the universe's secrets. Hypatia's voice is bold. Look to the stars. What truths are you piecing together? What puzzles are you solving? Keep shining, keep reasoning, let your mind soar. Chrysippus. Picture a wiry, energetic Stoic jogging through the crowded streets of Athens, tossing logic puzzles like they're verbal fireworks. That's Chrysippus. Who took Stoicism and made it sharp, practical. Saying emotions aren't wild storms, they're judgments we make, so if you change how you think, you change how you feel. It's like flipping a switch in your mind. His big idea is that fate's a giant web, set in place. But you get to choose how you move through it, like a dancer picking steps in a cosmic rhythm. Your freedom lies in those choices, every single day. He'd debate anyone who'd listen. Quirky habit, wrote hundreds of scrolls, most lost now. Legend says he died laughing at a donkey munching figs. What a wild exit. Fun fact, his logic puzzles were so clever they helped shape modern math, even the algorithms powering your phone. Today, his Stoic wisdom fuels apps for stress relief, strategies for clear thinking. Chrysippus' nudge is straightforward. Think before you feel. What choices are you making in life's dance? How can you step wisely? Keep your mind sharp, move with purpose. Plotinus. Imagine a mystic sitting in ancient Rome, under a quiet, starry night, chasing a single source of everything. That's Plotinus. The father of Neoplatonism, who believed all reality flows from the One, like light spilling from a cosmic sun, touching every star, every soul, every stone. His big idea is a spiritual journey through deep thinking. Quiet meditation, you climb above the messy, noisy world, back to that pure unity, like a bird soaring higher. leaving the chaos below, seeking a higher truth that connects everything. He'd slip into trances, lost in thought, quirky habit. Ate barely anything, lived so simply his students swore he glowed with inner peace, like a candle in the dark. Fun fact, he refused to have his portrait painted, saying images trap the soul, keep it free, he urged, focus on the spirit. Today, his mysticism inspires meditation apps, spiritual seekers looking for connection. Plotinus' voice is calm, reach for the source, what's pulling your soul upward, what unity are you seeking? Keep climbing, let wonder guide you. Porphyry. Picture a scholar in Tyre, editing his teacher's cosmic visions, that's Porphyry, Plotinus' disciple, who spread Neoplatonism. Saying the soul's journey is a climb to divine unity, like hiking a spiritual mountain. His big idea, all religions point to one truth, a bold bridge in a divided world. He'd write by lamplight, quirky habit, vegetarian, saw animals as soul kin, not food. Fun twist, his logic texts kept Aristotle alive, shaping medieval thought. Today, his universalism vibes in interfaith talks, eco-ethics, Porphyry whispers, see the unity, what connects your world? Climb toward truth. Boethius. Imagine a Roman scholar locked in a dark cell, facing a grim fate. Yet writing a conversation with an imaginary lady philosophy, that's Boethius, who blended Stoic calm with Christian hope. Saying life's like a spinning wheel, up one day, down the next, but wisdom keeps you steady, no matter where it lands. His big idea, in Consolation of Philosophy, is that true happiness comes from inside, not from money, power, or fame. Which slip away like sand, it's about finding peace in your heart, standing firm against life's ups and downs. He'd hum old Roman tunes, quirky habit, wrote about music, seeing it as a mirror of the universe's harmony, connecting your soul to the stars. Fun tragedy, accused of treason, his life ended early, but his book lived on, inspiring poets like Dante, thinkers across centuries. Today, his wisdom fuels resilience coaching, spiritual searches for inner strength. Boethius' voice is steady, find your inner calm, what keeps you grounded when life spins, what wisdom holds you steady. Hold it close, let it guide your heart. Avicenna, Ibn Sina. Picture a Persian polymath in a candlelit study, surrounded by scrolls. Scribbling ideas that blend science, faith, like a sage weaving a cosmic tapestry, that's Avicenna. A genius who said the soul's eternal, but the body's just a temporary guest. His big idea, essence versus existence, sounds heady, but imagine a book. Its story exists only when it's read. God makes things real by reading them into being. It's like the universe needs a divine spark to shine. He wrote the Book of Healing, not for cuts, but for souls, blending Aristotle, Islam, into a philosophy that shaped centuries. He'd sip tea, work late, quirky habit, memorized entire texts, reciting them like epic poems to awestruck students. Fun fact, he was a doctor too. His medical encyclopedia guided healers for ages, like a medieval WebMD with deeper vibes. Imagine him juggling logic, astronomy, poetry, all while dodging political feuds. His life was a whirlwind of thought, action. Today, his ideas echo in debates on consciousness, AI ethics, where we ask, what makes something real, what's the spark of existence? Avicenna's voice nudges, seek the divine in every question, what's the essence of your world? Keep exploring, let truth light your path. Averroes, Ibn Rushd. Imagine a Spanish Muslim scholar in a bustling Córdoba market, debating Aristotle under olive trees. That's Averroes, who said reason and faith can dance together, no need to fight. His big idea, double truth, means philosophy, religion both seek truth, just in different ways, like two paths up the same mountain. He wrote epic commentaries on Aristotle, making Greek ideas spark in Islamic minds, like a translator of wisdom across ages. He'd sip coffee, argue with clerics, quirky habit, loved stargazing, seeing logic in the cosmos twirl. Fun twist, he was exiled for his bold ideas, but his books shaped Aquinas, even the Renaissance. Picture him defending reason in court, a lone voice against dogma, his passion infectious, his words like fire. Today, his ideas live in interfaith talks, science-religion debates, where we ask, can logic, belief coexist? How do they shape your truth? Averroes whispers, embrace both paths, what mountain are you climbing? Keep reasoning, keep believing. Al-Farabi. Picture a wandering scholar in Baghdad's golden age, strumming a lute, pondering the perfect society. That's Al-Farabi. Who dreamed of a city where virtue, reason rule, like a philosopher's utopia. His big idea, blending Plato, Aristotle with Islamic thought, says happiness comes from knowing truth, living justly, like tuning your soul to a cosmic song. He wrote about music, logic, politics, seeing harmony in everything, a polymath with a poet's heart. Quirky habit, he'd play lute to think, notes sparking ideas like stars in the night. Fun fact, called second teacher after Aristotle, he influenced Avicenna, shaped medieval thought. Imagine him teaching under palm trees, students hanging on every word, his vision of a just world inspiring hope. Today, his ideas echo in urban planning, ethical AI, where we ask, what makes a good society? How do you live in harmony? Al-Farabi nudges, seek virtue, what's your ideal city? Tune your life to truth. Al-Ghazali. Imagine a mystic in a quiet mosque, wrestling with doubt, seeking God's light. That's Al-Ghazali. Who said reason alone can't grasp the divine, you need faith's spark. His big idea, skepticism of philosophy, shook the Islamic world. Arguing logic's great, but spiritual truth needs heart, like finding peace in prayer, not just books. His incoherence of the philosophers challenged thinkers like Avicenna, yet he loved knowledge, just wanted it grounded in God. Quirky habit, he'd meditate for hours, seeking visions to guide his pen. Fun twist, his doubts led to a breakdown, then a comeback, his writings blending Sufi mysticism, logic. Picture him wandering deserts, finding truth in silence, his words like a bridge between mind, soul. Today, his ideas inspire spiritual seekers, mindfulness apps, where we ask, what's beyond reason? What lights your soul? Al-Ghazali whispers, seek the divine spark, what's your heart searching for? Trust faith, find peace. Maimonides. Picture a Jewish scholar in medieval Cairo, writing by lamplight. Guiding souls through faith, reason. That's Maimonides, who said God's truth shines in both Torah, logic, like two lanterns lighting one path. His big idea, reconciling Aristotle with Judaism, says God's perfect, beyond human grasp, but we know him through study, ethics, like solving a divine puzzle. His guide for the perplexed helped lost souls navigate faith, doubt, a beacon for centuries. Quirky habit, he was a doctor, treating sultans, writing medical tips alongside philosophy. Fun fact, his works sparked debates, some burned his books, others worshipped them. Imagine him balancing court life, scholarship, his pen a bridge between worlds. Today, his ideas shape interfaith dialogues, ethical debates, where we ask, how do faith, reason meet, what guides your moral compass? Maimonides nudges. Study deeply, what truth lights your way? Seek wisdom, live justly. Ramon Llull. Imagine a mystic in medieval Majorca, scribbling wild diagrams, dreaming of uniting all faiths. That's Ramon Llull. Who built a thinking machine of spinning wheels to prove God's truth, like a medieval computer geek. His big idea, a universal logic, said all religions share core truths, like colors blending into one light. He wanted to convert Muslims, Christians, Jews through reason, not swords. He wrote novels, poems, quirky habit, learned Arabic to debate, sailed to North Africa, fearless in his quest. Fun twist, nearly stoned for preaching, yet kept going, his passion unstoppable. Picture him sketching circles under starry skies, his mind a whirlwind of faith, logic. Today, his ideas spark AI logic, interfaith talks, where we ask, what truths unite us? How can reason build bridges? Llull whispers, seek the common light, what connects your world? Dare to reason, unite. Thomas More. Picture an English lawyer in a bustling Tudor court, dreaming of a perfect island where greed's gone. That's Thomas More, who wrote Utopia. A vision of a society with no private property, just shared joy. His big idea, idealism with a wink, showed a world where justice, equality rule, but he knew it's a dream, like a fairy tale poking fun at reality's flaws. He'd jest with kings, quirky habit, loved gardening, finding peace in roses amid court chaos. Fun tragedy, his loyalty to faith cost his life, beheaded for defying Henry VIII. Imagine him writing under candlelight, his wit sharp, his heart torn between duty, dreams. Today, his ideas inspire social justice, sci-fi worlds. Where we ask, what's your perfect society? Can dreams shape reality? More nudges, imagine a better world, what's your utopia? Keep dreaming, act boldly. Duns Scotus. Imagine a Scottish monk in a chilly monastery, debating God's nature with fiery passion. That's Duns Scotus. Who said individuality matters? Every person, thing has a unique thisness, like a fingerprint of existence. His big idea, haxiety, says God loves each of us for our one-of-a-kind spark, not just as part of a crowd. It's like every leaf on a tree matters. He argued with Aquinas, blending faith, logic, his mind a razor slicing through doubts. Quirky habit, he'd pace cloisters, muttering Latin, ideas sparking like fireflies. Fun fact, his dense writings earned him the nickname Subtle Doctor, yet inspired poets like Hopkins. Picture him teaching monks, his voice booming, faith a puzzle to solve. Today, his ideas echo in identity politics, personalized tech, where we ask, what makes you unique? How does your thisness shine? Scotus whispers, embrace your spark, what makes you you? Celebrate it, live boldly. William of Ockham. Picture a sharp-eyed monk in a medieval hall, slashing through fluffy ideas with a logical blade. That's William of Ockham. Who gave us Occam's razor, saying the simplest explanation is usually best, like cutting through a maze with a straight line. His big idea, nominalism, says universal concepts like beauty are just names, not real things, only individuals exist, like each star shining on its own. He challenged the church, emperors, his pen a sword against dogma. Quirky habit, he'd sketch logical diagrams, making sense of chaos like a puzzle master. Fun twist, excommunicated for his boldness, he fled, kept writing, a rebel with a cause. Imagine him debating popes, his logic sparking like lightning. Today, his razor shapes science, coding, where we ask, what's the simplest truth? How can you cut through the noise? Occam nudges, keep it simple, what's the core of your puzzle? Slice through, find clarity. Giambattista Vico. Imagine an Italian scholar in a cluttered study, dreaming of history as a grand spiral. That's Giambattista Vico. Who said human societies cycle through chaos, order, like seasons of the mind. His big idea, the new science, says we understand history because we make it. Our myths, laws, art shape the world, like stories we live inside. He saw imagination as humanity's superpower, crafting gods, heroes, civilizations. Quirky habit, he'd recite poetry to spark ideas, his voice echoing through Naples streets. Fun fact, ignored in his time, he later inspired historians, Joyce's novels. Picture him teaching poor students, his passion a fire lighting their minds. Today, his ideas fuel anthropology, storytelling apps, where we ask, what stories shape your world? How do you cycle through life's seasons? Vico whispers, imagine your history, what tale are you crafting? Weave it boldly, live its spiral. Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Picture a fiery German in a packed lecture hall, eyes blazing. Preaching that you shape reality, that's Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Who said the world starts with your eye, your mind creating everything, like a painter splashing colors on a blank canvas. His big idea, idealism, says reality's born from your consciousness, not just out there, it's like your thoughts build the universe, step by step. He inspired German nationalism, his speeches a rallying cry against Napoleon. Quirky habit, he'd pace furiously, ideas pouring out like a storm. Fun twist, his bold talks got him accused of atheism, yet he saw God in human freedom. Imagine him shouting to students, their minds ignited, ready to remake the world. Today, his ideas spark self-help, virtual reality, where we ask, how do your thoughts shape your world? What reality are you creating? Fichte nudges, own your eye, what world are you painting? Act boldly, create freely. Friedrich Schelling. Imagine a dreamy German wandering forests, seeing nature as a living poem, that's Friedrich Schelling. Who said the universe is a creative spirit, pulsing through trees, stars, your own mind? His big idea, nature philosophy, blends science, art, saying nature, human thought are one, like a song where every note connects. He saw freedom in creativity, not just logic, like painting a world with your soul. Quirky habit, he'd sketch nature's patterns, finding philosophy in leaves, rivers. Fun fact, his ideas inspired romantic poets, yet he feuded with Hegel, his old friend. Picture him lecturing, his voice soft, yet sparking wild ideas in artists, thinkers. Today, his thoughts fuel eco-philosophy, creative coding, where we ask, how are you part of nature's poem? What creativity flows through you? Schelling whispers, feel the world's pulse. What's your creative spark? Dance with nature, create boldly. Ernst Cassirer. Picture a German scholar in a quiet library, unraveling how humans create. Meaning, that's Ernst Cassirer, who said we're symbolic animals, building worlds through language, art, myths, like storytellers of reality. His big idea, symbolic forms, says culture shapes how we see, think, from cave paintings to emojis, it's all us making sense of chaos. He fled Nazis, wrote in exile, his mind a lighthouse in dark times. Quirky habit, he'd collect folk tales, seeing them as keys to human imagination. Fun fact, his philosophy of symbolic forms inspired linguists, anthropologists, even game designers. Imagine him teaching, his glasses slipping, ideas sparking like fireworks. Today, his work shapes media studies, AI language models, where we ask, how do symbols shape your world? What stories are you telling? Cassirer nudges, embrace your symbols. What meaning are you crafting? Create boldly, shape reality. Alexander Koyeve. Imagine a Russian exile in Paris, lecturing on Hegel with a cigarette in hand. That's Alexander Koyeve. Who said history's a struggle for recognition, ending when we all see each other as equals, like a global handshake. His big idea, the end of history, says human desire drives progress, but once we're free, equal, history slows, like a story reaching its final page. His seminars electrified thinkers like Sartre, his wit sharp as a blade. Quirky habit, he'd doodle during talks, ideas flowing in sketches, words. Fun twist, a diplomat, maybe a spy, his life was a philosophical thriller. Picture him in smoky cafes, sparking debates that shook the 20th century. Today, his ideas fuel political theory, social media battles, where we ask, what recognition do you seek? How do you end your history? Koyeve whispers, seek mutual respect, what's your place in the story? Fight for equality, live boldly. Pierre Bourdieu. Picture a French sociologist in a bustling café, watching people, decoding society's hidden rules. That's Pierre Bourdieu. Who said power hides in habits, tastes, like invisible strings pulling us. His big idea, cultural capital, says your education, style, even accent shape your place in the world, like a game where some start with extra points. He studied elites, workers, showing how class shapes everything, from art to dinner choices. Quirky habit, he'd observe strangers, noting their gestures like a detective of culture. Fun fact, his work sparked fights with academics, but inspired activists, artists. Imagine him scribbling notes, his mind mapping society's secret codes. Today, his ideas shine in social justice, marketing, where we ask, what shapes your status? How do you navigate society's game? Bourdieu nudges, see the strings, what capital shapes your world? Break free, rewrite the rules. Jean Baudrillard. Imagine a French thinker in a neon-lit city, watching ads flicker, saying realities become a simulation. That's Jean Baudrillard. Who argued we live in a hyperreality, where media, signs replace truth, like living in a movie with no script. His big idea, simulacra, says images, ads, social media create a fake world we mistake for real, like chasing likes instead of life. He'd sip espresso, critique TV, quirky habit, loved sci-fi, seeing it as prophecy of our virtual age. Fun twist, his book inspired The Matrix, his ideas too wild for some. Picture him laughing at billboards, decoding their lies with glee. Today, his work shapes media studies, VR debates, where we ask, what's real in your world? How do you escape the simulation? Baudrillard whispers, question the signs, what's beyond the screen? Seek truth, break free. Félix Guattari. Picture a wild French thinker in a chaotic office, scribbling ideas with Deleuze, dreaming of freedom from rigid systems. That's Félix Guattari. Who said society's a machine, but we can rewire it, like hackers of the mind? His big idea, schizoanalysis, rejects Freud's rules, says desire flows freely, creating new connections, like a river carving new paths. He co-wrote Anti-Oedipus, a rebel yell against control, capitalism. Quirky habit, he'd sketch mind maps, ideas sprawling like graffiti. Fun fact, a psychiatrist, he worked with patients, saw madness as creative, not broken. Imagine him in protests, his energy electric, pushing for new ways to think, live. Today, his ideas fuel activism, open source tech, where we ask, how can you break free, what new paths can you carve? Guattari nudges, rewrite the machine, what's your desire creating? Flow freely, spark change. Antonio Gramsci. Imagine an Italian revolutionary in a prison cell, scribbling notebooks that shook the world. That's Antonio Gramsci. Who said power isn't just force, it's ideas, culture shaping our minds, like a song stuck in your head. His big idea, hegemony, says ruling classes control through beliefs, media, not just guns, like ads making you want what they sell. He fought fascism, his words a weapon against Mussolini's grip. Quirky habit, he'd write in code, hiding ideas from guards, his mind a fortress. Fun tragedy, jailed till death, his prison notebooks inspired rebels worldwide. Picture him writing by dim light, his spirit unbroken, ideas blazing. Today, his work fuels cultural studies, activism, where we ask, what ideas control your world? How can you resist? Gramsci whispers, challenge the culture, what beliefs shape your fight? Break free, ignite change. Henri Bergson. Picture a French philosopher in a quiet park, watching time flow like a river. That's Henri Bergson. Who said life's not a machine, but a creative surge, like a melody unfolding? His big idea, élan vital, says a vital spark drives evolution, art, life, not just cold mechanics, like a painter's brush bringing canvas alive. He saw time as duration, not clock ticks, but a flowing experience, like living a song, not counting its beats. Quirky habit, he'd walk to think, ideas dancing with each step. Fun fact, his lectures packed halls, inspired Proust, Einstein's debates. Imagine him speaking, his voice hypnotic, time itself bending to his words. Today, his ideas spark creativity studies, mindfulness apps, where we ask, how do you feel time's flow, what's your creative spark? Bergson nudges, ride life's rhythm. What melody are you living? Flow freely, create boldly. Alfred North Whitehead. Imagine an English mathematician in a cozy study, dreaming of a universe alive, interconnected. That's Alfred North Whitehead. Who said reality's a process, not fixed things, like a dance where every step creates the next. His big idea, process philosophy, says everything's in flux, events weaving together, like a story unfolding with every moment. He co-wrote Principia Mathematica, then turned to metaphysics, seeing God as a cosmic poet, guiding change. Quirky habit, he'd doodle equations, finding beauty in their flow. Fun fact, his ideas inspired ecology, quantum physics, yet baffled his peers. Picture him teaching, his voice calm, the world a web of living moments. Today, his work shapes environmental ethics, systems thinking, where we ask, how are you part of life's dance? What connections do you weave? Whitehead whispers, embrace the flow. What's your role in the cosmic story? Dance boldly, create anew. Charles Sanders Peirce. Picture a scruffy, bearded scholar in a cluttered American study, scribbling furiously, chasing the spark of truth like a detective on a cosmic case. That's Charles Sanders Peirce. The father of pragmatism, who believed ideas are only as good as their real-world effects, like tools you test by using them. His big idea, pragmaticism, says truth isn't some lofty gem hidden in the sky, it's what works, what shapes your life. Like choosing a path because it gets you home, not because it's true in some abstract way. He saw knowledge as a community effort, evolving through doubt, inquiry, like scientists building on each other's experiments, forever refining what we believe. Peirce was a polymath, juggling logic, math, philosophy. Even astronomy, his mind a fireworks display of connections, always sparking new questions, new insights. Quirky habit, he'd doodle complex diagrams, mapping thoughts like a cartographer charting unknown lands, his papers a chaotic treasure trove of genius. Fun fact, he struggled with money, often broke, yet his ideas shaped modern science, linguistics. Even AI algorithms, his influence like a seed that grew into a forest. Imagine him pacing his room, muttering about abduction, his term for creative guesses. Like a detective piecing together clues before the facts are clear, he'd argue that's how we innovate, how we leap forward. His semiotics, the study of signs, says everything, from words to smiles, carries meaning, like a cosmic language we're all speaking without knowing it. He'd sit under starry skies, pondering how signs connect us to the universe, each thought a bridge to something bigger. Peirce wasn't just a thinker, he was a rebel, challenging stuffy academics, demanding ideas prove themselves in action, not just in dusty books. His life wasn't easy, often clashing with institutions, his temper flaring like a storm. Yet his passion for truth kept him going, like a lone explorer in a vast intellectual wilderness. Today, his ideas light up fields like data science, where algorithms mimic his abductive leaps, or design. Where signs shape user experience, think of apps that feel intuitive, that's Peirce's legacy whispering through. His pragmatism lives in startups testing ideas fast, in debates where we ask, does this work, not just, is it true? Peirce's voice is bold, test your beliefs. What do they do for you, how do they shape your world? Keep questioning, keep experimenting. Let truth evolve through your actions, your life a living laboratory for ideas. William James. Imagine a warm, witty professor in a Harvard lecture hall, charming students with stories of the mind. That's William James. A pragmatist who said truth is what helps you live better, like a recipe that makes your day tastier. His big idea, radical empiricism, says experience, not just logic, shapes reality. Your feelings, hunches, even dreams matter, like colors in a painting that make it whole. He wrote The Varieties of Religious Experience, diving into faith's wild, personal side, saying belief is a choice, like betting on what gives life meaning. James was a psychologist too, mapping the mind's streams, his words flowing like a river, easy to follow, deep to swim in. Quirky habit, he'd sketch faces in his notes, capturing emotions as he pondered consciousness. Fun fact, he tried mystical experiments, like nitrous oxide, chasing spiritual insights, a philosopher with a poet's heart. Picture him strolling Boston's parks, chatting with strangers, finding wisdom in their stories, his curiosity boundless, his smile infectious. He saw life as pluralistic, no single truth, but many paths, like a city with countless roads to explore. James wasn't just academic, he was human, wrestling with depression, yet finding joy in ideas, his warmth a beacon for students, friends. His pragmatism asks, does it work? Does it enrich your life, like choosing music that lifts your soul? Today, his ideas shine in therapy. Where emotions guide healing, or tech, where user experience rules, think of apps designed for how you feel, that's James's touch. He'd say don't chase one truth, embrace what works for you, like picking a favorite song, not the best one. His work on free will says you shape your destiny, each choice a brushstroke on life's canvas. Imagine him cheering you on, urging you to trust your instincts, to live boldly, authentically. His philosophy feels like a conversation with a wise friend, asking you to explore your own experiences, to find meaning in the messy, beautiful chaos of life. Today, his voice echoes in mindfulness, positive psychology, where we ask, what makes your life richer, what beliefs lift you up? James nudges gently, trust your experience, what's your truth today? How does it shape your journey? Keep exploring, live your story, make it vibrant, full of heart. John Dewey. Picture a practical American in a bustling classroom, rolling up his sleeves, teaching kids to learn by doing. That's John Dewey. A pragmatist who said ideas come alive through action, like planting a seed to see it grow. His big idea, experiential learning, says we grow by trying, failing. Reflecting, not just memorizing facts, like building a house by hammering nails, not reading about it. He wrote Democracy in Education, arguing schools should be labs for life, teaching kids to think, question, like mini philosophers shaping their world. Dewey saw democracy as a living experiment, not just votes, but communities solving problems together, like a giant group project. Quirky habit, he'd sketch lesson plans in cafes, sipping coffee, watching people, ideas sparked by everyday life. Fun fact, his ideas shaped modern schools, yet he clashed with rigid educators, a rebel for hands-on learning. Imagine him in a workshop, kids building, debating, his eyes twinkling as they discover truths through play. He believed philosophy should solve real problems, not chase abstract puzzles, like fixing a broken bike, not just dreaming of one. His instrumentalism says ideas are tools, pick the ones that work, like choosing a wrench for a bolt. Dewey's life was action, founding schools, writing books, even marching for women's rights, his energy a whirlwind of change. Today, his ideas fuel project-based learning, tech bootcamps, where we ask, what do you learn by doing? How does action shape your mind? His democratic vision lives in community apps, civic tech, where people collaborate to fix their world. Dewey's voice is practical. Try it, see what works. What experiment are you running in your life? Keep tinkering. Keep building. Make your world better through action. Wilfrid Sellars. Imagine a sharp-eyed philosopher in a Pittsburgh office, unraveling how we know what we know. That's Wilfrid Sellars. Who said science, myth clash in our minds, like two maps of the same city. His big idea, the myth of the given, says raw data, like colors or feelings, isn't enough. Knowledge needs concepts, like a story needs words to make sense. He saw science as our best map, but not the only one, blending it with everyday beliefs, like a painter mixing colors for a masterpiece. Sellars' empiricism and the philosophy of mind is a dense, thrilling puzzle, challenging us to rethink perception, thought, reality itself. Quirky habit, he'd scribble equations, blending logic, science, like a mathematician of the mind. Fun fact, his father was a philosopher too, their debates like intellectual duels, sparking ideas that shaped analytic philosophy. Picture him lecturing, his voice calm, yet slicing through confusion, students scribbling furiously to keep up. He saw language as a game, rules we follow to share truths, like a board game where moves make meaning. Sellars wasn't flashy, but his ideas were revolutionary, bridging science, philosophy, like a bridge over a stormy river. Today, his work lights up cognitive science, AI research, where we ask, how do we turn raw data into knowledge? What maps guide your mind? His voice nudges, question your assumptions. What shapes your reality? How do you know what's true? Keep exploring, refine your mental map. Donald Davidson. Picture a calm philosopher in a sunny Berkeley office, sipping coffee, pondering how we understand each other. That's Donald Davidson. Who said meaning comes from shared language, like a dance where we sync steps to connect. His big idea, the principle of charity, says we assume others make sense, even when their words seem odd, like trusting a friend's story before doubting it. His work on truth, meaning, says language ties us to reality, like threads weaving a tapestry of thought. Davidson wrote Inquiries into Truth and Interpretation, a quiet bombshell, showing how we interpret, communicate, like decoding a cosmic puzzle. Quirky habit, he'd hum jazz tunes, finding rhythm in philosophical debates, his mind a melody of logic. Fun fact, he loved sailing, seeing philosophy as navigating life's choppy waters. Imagine him chatting with students, his smile disarming, ideas flowing like a gentle breeze. He saw actions, beliefs as linked, like gears in a machine, each shaping the other in a dance of intention. Davidson's philosophy is practical. asking how we connect, understand, like friends finding common ground over coffee. Today, his ideas shape linguistics, AI chatbots, where we ask, how do you understand others? What bridges your words to theirs? His voice nudges, assume good faith. What meaning are you sharing? How do you connect? Keep talking, weave your tapestry. Saul Kripke. Imagine a boy genius turned philosopher, pacing a Princeton office, unraveling how words name reality. That's Saul Kripke. Who said names aren't just labels, they're anchors to things, like a ship tied to a dock. His big idea, rigid designators, says names like Aristotle point to one specific person across all possible worlds, like a cosmic ID tag. His book Naming and Necessity flipped philosophy upside down, making us rethink truth, identity, like a detective solving a case with logic alone. Quirky habit, he'd lecture without notes, ideas flowing like a jazz solo, spontaneous, brilliant. Fun fact, a prodigy, he taught himself logic as a teen, later shaking up philosophy with boyish glee. Picture him debating, his eyes twinkling, unraveling language's mysteries like a puzzle master. Kripke's work on modal logic, possible worlds, lets us imagine alternate realities, like sci-fi for thinkers, asking what's necessary, what's possible. His philosophy feels like a game, challenging you to question how words, truths hold steady. Today, his ideas fuel AI semantics, philosophical debates, where we ask, what do your words anchor? How do they shape reality? Kripke nudges, name your world clearly, what truths hold across possibilities? Keep exploring, pin down your reality. W.V.O. Quine. Picture a Harvard logician in a messy office, challenging the very idea of fixed truths. That's W.V.O. Quine. Who said knowledge is a web, woven from experience, logic, like a tapestry we keep reweaving. His big idea, holism, says no belief stands alone, each connects to others, like a puzzle where every piece shifts the whole picture. His two dogmas of empiricism shook philosophy, rejecting rigid truths, saying meaning comes from use, like words gaining life in conversation. Quirky habit, he'd collect dictionaries, fascinated by how languages evolve, like living organisms. Fun fact, he debated Chomsky, their clash a legendary battle of linguistic titans. Imagine him typing furiously, his mind a whirlwind, unraveling how we know, speak, think. Quine saw science, philosophy as partners, testing ideas like sailors charting seas. His naturalism says no truth is sacred, everything's open to question, like a scientist doubting yesterday's facts. Today, his ideas shape data analysis, language AI, where we ask, how do your beliefs connect, what web holds your truth? Quine nudges, question everything, what's your knowledge weaving, how does it hold up? Keep reweaving, seek clarity. Hilary Putnam. Imagine a curious philosopher in a Cambridge office, flipping between math, ethics, like a kid in a candy store of ideas. That's Hilary Putnam. Who said truth shifts with perspective, like light changing through a prism? His big idea, functionalism, says the mind's like software, not just brain hardware, thoughts are processes, like apps running on your phone. His reason, truth and history argues reality depends on how we describe it, like a story we tell together. Quirky habit, he'd switch topics mid-lecture, his mind darting like a hummingbird. Fun fact, he moved from realism to anti-realism, like a philosopher changing teams, sparking debates galore. Picture him chatting with students, his laugh warm, ideas sparking like firecrackers. Putnam's work on meaning says words gain sense from context, like a joke only funny with the right setup. His philosophy is playful, practical, asking how we know, what we value, like a friend challenging your assumptions over coffee. Today, his ideas fuel AI design, ethical debates, where we ask, what's your mind's software, how does it shape your truth? Putnam nudges, rethink your reality. What story are you telling, how does it shift? Keep exploring, embrace the prism. Michael Dummett. Picture an Oxford philosopher in a cozy library, pondering cards, language, like a detective of meaning. That's Michael Dummett. Who said truth depends on how we verify it, like checking a fact before you tweet it. His big idea, anti-realism, says reality isn't fixed, it's what we can prove, like a game where rules define what's real. His work on logic, language, says meaning comes from use, like words alive in conversation, not locked in dictionaries. Dummett loved tarot, quirky habit, wrote books on it, seeing cards as puzzles of human thought. Fun fact, he fought racism, blending philosophy with activism, his heart as sharp as his mind. Imagine him debating, his voice steady, unraveling truth like a magician pulling scarves. His philosophy of math says numbers exist through our proofs, like stories we tell with equations. Today, his ideas shape verification tech, ethical debates, where we ask, how do you prove your truth, what's your game's rules? Dummett nudges, verify your beliefs, what can you prove, how does it shape your world? Keep questioning, play the game wisely. Robert Brandom. Imagine a Pittsburgh philosopher in a lively seminar, weaving logic, language into a tapestry of meaning. That's Robert Brandom. Who said we make sense of the world by talking, reasoning together, like a community writing a shared story. His big idea, inferentialism, says meaning comes from connections, not just words, like a conversation where every reply builds the plot. His making it explicit is a hefty tome, arguing we're responsible for our claims, like players in a game of reasons. Quirky habit, he'd use sports metaphors, explaining philosophy like a baseball match, each move strategic. Fun fact, he studied with Rorty, yet carved his own path, a quiet giant in analytic thought. Picture him lecturing, his voice warm, ideas sparking like a campfire. Brandom sees knowledge as social, built through dialogue, like a group chat shaping truth. Today, his ideas fuel AI semantics, teamwork apps, where we ask, how do your words connect, what story are you building? Brandom nudges, reason together. What's your role in the conversation, how do you shape truth? Keep talking, weave the story. Gilbert Ryle. Picture an Oxford don in a tweed jacket, sipping tea, poking holes in the idea of a ghost in the machine. That's Gilbert Ryle. Who said the mind isn't a separate thing, but how we act, talk, live, like a dance revealing who you are. His big idea, in the concept of mind, says mental states are behaviors, not hidden spirits, like knowing a song by singing it, not storing it in a secret box. He mocked Descartes' dualism, calling it a category mistake, like looking for a university in its buildings. Quirky habit, he'd tell witty stories, making philosophy feel like a pub chat, his humor sharp as a dart. Fun fact, his book sparked behaviorism, yet he wasn't a fan, preferring a broader view of mind. Imagine him strolling Oxford's quads, tossing questions like confetti, students laughing, thinking, rethinking. Ryle's philosophy is practical, asking how your actions show your mind, like a painter's brushstrokes revealing their soul. He saw language as key, words shaping how we understand ourselves, like a script we perform daily. Today, his ideas shine in cognitive science, UX design, where we ask, how do your actions define you? What's your mind's dance? Ryle nudges, live your thoughts, what behaviors shape your story? How do you show who you are? Keep acting, reveal your mind. G. E. Moore. Imagine a quiet Englishman in a Cambridge lecture room, holding up his hands, proving the world exists. That's G. E. Moore. Who said common sense is our best guide, like trusting your eyes over abstract doubts. His big idea, defending realism, says the world's real, not a dream, because here are my hands, see them, touch them, they're solid. His Principia Ethica argues goodness can't be defined, like beauty, you just know it when you feel it. Quirky habit, he'd pause mid-sentence, staring, as if truth might sneak by if he blinked. Fun fact, he influenced Wittgenstein, yet stayed humble, a philosopher's philosopher with a farmer's practicality. Picture him debating, his voice steady, grounding wild ideas in everyday truths, like a friend reminding you what's real. Moore's ethics focus on simple goods, friendship, art, not grand theories, like choosing a cozy chat over a lecture. His work feels like a warm handshake, asking you to trust what you see, feel, know. Today, his ideas echo in debates on reality, ethics apps. Where we ask, what's obviously true to you, what goodness do you feel? Moore nudges, trust your senses. What's real in your hands, how does it shape your life? Keep it simple, live what you know. Peter Strawson. Picture an Oxford philosopher in a cozy pub, sipping ale, unraveling how we describe the world. That's Peter Strawson. Who said our concepts, like person, shape reality, like lenses we can't take off? His big idea, descriptive metaphysics, says we don't invent the world, we map it, using ideas like space, time. Self, like a cartographer charting life's terrain. His individuals argues persons are basic, not just bodies or minds, but both, like a story with a hero you can't split. Quirky habit, he'd scribble on napkins, ideas flowing over pints, his mind a quiet storm. Fun fact, he debated Quine, defending ordinary language like a knight for common sense. Imagine him teaching, his voice gentle, yet cutting through jargon like a breeze. Strawson saw freedom, responsibility is tied to how we talk, like a conversation shaping your choices. His philosophy is grounded, asking how you describe your world, like a poet naming feelings. Today, his ideas shape linguistics, AI ethics, where we ask, what concepts frame your life? How do you map reality? Strawson nudges, describe your world, what lenses shape your truth, how do you see yourself? Keep mapping, live your concepts. Hans Jonas. Imagine a German philosopher in a quiet study, pondering our duty to the future. That's Hans Jonas. Who said technology's power demands new ethics, like a captain steering a ship through stormy seas. His big idea, the imperative of responsibility, says we must protect future generations, nature, like guardians of a fragile world. The imperative of responsibility warns that our tools, from AI to biotech, could outrun our wisdom, like a car speeding without brakes. Quirky habit, he'd walk forests, finding ethics in trees, rivers, his heart tied to nature. Fun fact, he studied with Heidegger, but turned to practical ethics, a thinker with a mission. Picture him lecturing, his voice urgent, calling us to care for tomorrow's world. Jonas saw life as sacred, demanding we act with foresight, like planting trees for kids you'll never meet. His philosophy is a wake-up call, asking how your choices shape the future, like ripples in a pond. Today, his ideas fuel climate activism, ethical tech, where we ask, what do you owe the future, how do you protect life? Jonas nudges, act with care. What legacy are you leaving, how will it shape tomorrow? Keep guarding, live responsibly. José Ortega y Gasset. Picture a Spanish thinker in a Madrid cafe, watching crowds, pondering life's drama. That's José Ortega y Gasset. Who said you're not just a self, but a self in the world, like an actor on a stage you help create. His big idea, perspectivism, says truth depends on your viewpoint, like seeing a city from different rooftops, each angle true, yet partial. The Revolt of the Masses warns of mediocrity in crowds, urging you to live authentically, like a poet crafting a unique verse. Quirky habit, he'd write essays like stories, blending philosophy, art, his words vivid as a painting. Fun fact, he fled Spain's civil war, his ideas a beacon for freedom. Imagine him debating, his voice passionate, urging you to live fully, not just follow the crowd. His philosophy feels like a call to adventure, asking you to shape your life, like a sculptor carving stone. Today, his ideas inspire influencers, artists, where we ask, what's your unique perspective, how do you stand out? Ortega nudges, live your truth. What stage are you shaping, how do you play your part? Keep creating, shine brightly. Karl Jaspers. Imagine a German doctor turned philosopher, sitting in a quiet study, pondering existence's mysteries. That's Karl Jaspers. Who said life's deepest truths come in limit situations, like facing death, love, or crisis, moments that shake you awake. His big idea, existentialism, says we find meaning by embracing our freedom, like a climber facing a steep peak, choosing each step with courage. His philosophy explores how we transcend, connect with the infinite, like a poet reaching for stars. Quirky habit, he'd sketch life's dilemmas, mapping human struggles like a doctor diagnosing the soul. Fun fact, he resisted Nazis, his writings a quiet rebellion, inspiring hope in dark times. Picture him counseling students, his voice warm, urging them to face life's big questions head-on. Jaspers saw communication as key, connecting us to others, like bridges between islands. His philosophy feels like a heartfelt talk, asking you to embrace your limits, find meaning in them. Today, his ideas fuel therapy, spiritual quests, where we ask, what moments define you, how do you face life's peaks? Jaspers nudges, embrace your limits. What meaning are you crafting? How do you transcend? Keep climbing, seek the infinite. Hans Weinger. Picture a German thinker in a quiet library, dreaming of ideas as useful fictions. That's Hans Weinger, who said we live by. As if stories, like believing the world's orderly to make sense of it. His big idea, fictionalism, says truths are tools, not absolutes, like maps we draw to navigate life, even if they're not perfect. The philosophy of as if argues we act as if things are true, like assuming gravity won't fail tomorrow. Quirky habit, he'd collect myths, seeing them as humanity's first fictions, guiding action. Fun fact, his ideas influenced psychology, economics, yet he stayed obscure, a hidden gem. Imagine him writing, his glasses slipping, ideas flowing like a storyteller's yarn. Weinger saw science, religion as fictions we live by, like scripts for life's play. His philosophy is practical, asking how your fictions shape your world, like choosing a story to live boldly. Today, his ideas spark game theory, narrative therapy, where we ask, what fictions guide you, how do they work for you? Weinger nudges, choose your as if, what story shapes your life? How does it help you navigate? Keep crafting, live your fiction. Nishida Kotaro. Picture a Japanese philosopher in a serene Kyoto garden. Pondering the unity of being, that's Nishida Kotaro, who founded the Kyoto School, blending Zen, Western thought, like a bridge between East, West. His big idea, pure experience, says reality's a flow before we split it into self, world. Like a moment of pure awareness, sitting quietly, feeling the world breathe. An inquiry into the good explores how we're one with reality, like drops in a cosmic ocean. Quirky habit, he'd meditate daily, ideas blooming like cherry blossoms in silence. Fun fact, his dense prose baffled students, yet inspired Japan's modern philosophy, a quiet revolution. Imagine him walking under pines, his mind weaving Zen, logic into a tapestry of being. Nishida saw contradictions as creative, driving life forward, like a koan sparking insight. His philosophy feels like a Zen riddle, asking you to feel reality before thinking it. Today, his ideas fuel mindfulness, cross-cultural studies, where we ask, what's your pure experience? How do you connect with the world? Nishida nudges, feel the unity, what flows through your moment. How do you join the cosmic dance? Keep meditating, embrace the whole. Watsuji Tetsuro. Imagine a Japanese thinker in a Tokyo tea house, watching people connect, pondering human bonds. That's Watsuji Tetsuro. Who said we're not just individuals, but beings shaped by relationships, like threads in a cultural fabric. His big idea, ethics of betweenness, says morality grows in the space between people, like harmony in a conversation, not just inside you. His Rinragaku argues we're tied to others, nature, like a village sharing a well. Quirky habit, he'd sketch landscapes, seeing ethics in mountains, rivers, human ties. Fun fact, he studied with Heidegger, but focused on Japan's communal spirit, a unique voice. Picture him teaching, his voice soft, urging students to see themselves in others, like reflections in a pond. Watsuji's philosophy feels like a warm gathering, asking how your relationships shape you, like a family shaping a home. Today, his ideas inspire social psychology, eco-ethics, where we ask, How do your connections define you? What's the space between you, others? What Suji nudges, live in between, what bonds shape your life, how do you nurture them? Keep connecting, weave your community. Tanabe Hajime. Picture a Japanese philosopher in a quiet Kyoto study, blending Zen, logic into a cosmic dance. That's Tanabe Hajime. A Kyoto school thinker who said life's contradictions drive us to act, like waves pushing a ship forward. His big idea, the logic of species, says we're shaped by groups, cultures, yet strive for universal truth, like a tree rooted in soil, reaching for the sky. His philosophy as metanoetics calls for repentance, transformation, like shedding old skin to grow anew. Quirky habit, he'd write poetry, finding truth in fleeting images, like cherry blossoms falling. Fun fact, he critiqued Nishida, his teacher, sparking debates that lit up Japanese thought. Imagine him meditating, his mind wrestling with faith, reason, like a monk seeking enlightenment through logic. Tanabe saw history as dynamic, driven by human action, like a river carving new paths. His philosophy feels like a call to change, asking you to face your flaws, grow through them. Today, his ideas fuel global ethics, cultural studies, where we ask, how do your roots shape you? What universal truth do you seek? Tanabe nudges, transform yourself. What contradictions drive you? How will you grow? Keep acting, embrace the dance. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the greatest minds in history. But our adventure doesn't stop here. In the next episode, we'll dive into 100 mind-bending paradoxes explained, fall asleep smarter. Mind-bending puzzles that challenge logic, twist reality, and make you question everything you thought you knew. From Zeno's paradox to Schrödinger's cat, and some that will break your brain in the best way possible. Don't miss it. Subscribe and stay tuned, because wisdom never sleeps.